What's up, everybody? It's your girl Sydnee Goodman, and if you didn't know, well, now you know. Today I'm going to answer one of the most asked questions that I get, which is, how did I get my job at IGN? I'm excited to share it with you. Hopefully it's helpful, so let's just get into it. Anyway, toward the end of me being in college, I was a consultant on the Destiny partnership at Red Bull. And then after that partnership ended, I was jobless and eventually got a job in the programming department at Red Bull Media House. And that was where I kind of started dipping my toes into esports because I knew that I wanted to do something in gaming. So that was my guiding light. And then BuzzFeed reached out to me. And while BuzzFeed reached out to me and didn't say like, be on camera, it was a really great opportunity. And I knew that BuzzFeed was known for kind of nurturing talent. And so as soon as I got to BuzzFeed, I let them know like, hey, I want to learn this. I want to learn how to operate a camera. I want to understand lighting. I want to understand like how to make a great video. It's like, I'm obviously going to do my job and do it at the best of my abilities. My job was in creating and executing content strategy on YouTube specifically. I also ran one of the BuzzFeed Instagrams. It was BuzzFeed Video. So they let me do that. And the cool thing of how life works out is that I actually ended up becoming one of the core like gaming personalities when we did do gaming content, which was such a blessing and just kind of one of those like right place, right time things and being vocal about what I wanted to do, and a combination of having contacts in the industry. Through all of this, even when I wasn't working specifically in games, I would make an effort to always go to any convention that I could go to. So my first job, convention job, I don't know why I'm doing this because it was a convention job, was E3 2015, I think. I worked at the GameSpot booth, which was GameSpot and Kind of Funny at the time, and I was a PA/a PR type person, and even that was just getting my foot in the door, and that was my first industry convention, which was super, super cool. Prior to that, I had gone to like MLG Anaheim, and I had gone to COD Champs and a couple other tournaments, but that was like my first job. After that, I would try my best to get work at like PAX East or PAX West, mostly PAX West just because it was cheaper for me to travel like on the coast I was on rather than go like across the United States, which is obviously more expensive. Now we're here, I'm at BuzzFeed, I'm doing content strategy, I'm in videos, and at the middle of November of 2017, I get reached out to by Jeff Keighley's team for the Game Awards. And this is kind of what I credit people knowing and seeing that I'm good at hosting starting. I mean, honestly, I didn't really even know that I was like good at like formal hosting. I knew I was good at talking to a camera because I was streaming, and like I knew I could be engaging, and just my overall personality when I'm telling stories, I'm like very animated and like, ah! So they reach out to me and they're like, hey, do you have a reel? And I'm like, no. So then I make a reel and I send it to them, and after some back and forth and them asking for my YouTube samples, maybe they didn't ask for a reel. In either case, they end up hiring me to be the backstage host for the Game Awards, which is incredible, an amazing opportunity. And I think it also worked out because everybody in the industry watches the Game Awards. And so a lot of people who I had met at conventions or met at tournaments or tangentially knew through Twitter, they saw that I could host and that I was doing this thing and that it was something I was even interested in doing. So then December rolls around, beginning of that is the Game Awards, and then I see a job posting in January, and I had just been casually kind of looking around because I was still working at BuzzFeed when I did the Game Awards, and what happened was the Game Awards was on a Thursday, so I took that Thursday off, did the Game Awards, and then came back to work on Friday, and I just remember this sinking feeling being like, oh my gosh, I need to be hosting. I want to be in front of the camera and I want to be hosting. And so then I kind of started looking for hosting jobs, and actually my friend Audrey DM'd me on Twitter and sent me this link, but the link wasn't like an IGN.com link. It was like, well, now I know it was a Ziff Davis link who owns IGN, but it was this job link, and I didn't even click on it because I was like, I don't know, like, I was kind of going back and forth. And then finally, I don't know, I ended up clicking on it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is for a host and producer position in LA. That was my biggest thing with IGN, was I had always respected and wanted to work for IGN, but they were in San Francisco. And you know, Alex, he has a job that he loves in LA, my family's in LA, like, while I was open to the idea of moving to San Francisco, I knew that it was more complicated than just me moving to San Francisco. So I applied for the job and I cut my reel, I updated my resume, I made a website, and then I reached out to anyone I knew at IGN. And by anyone I knew, they were friends of mine, but it still feels kind of weird like being like, hey, I need your help, I'm applying for your company, la-di-da. And luckily, some friends were like, yeah, totally, I'd love to give you an intro. And my friend Sean Finnegan specifically, he was like, okay, email me, you know, a bunch of YouTube videos that you've been in that you like, send me your reel, and I will make sure that the hiring manager sees this. And so this is January, right? So he does that, and a couple weeks later, I'm kind of like, oh man, maybe they don't like it. I don't really know what the deal is. And then Blair, who's the vice president of development and branded, reaches out to me and is like, hey, we have this opportunity that we think you'd be really great at, and it's for the Tomb Raider movie where you'd be training like Lara Croft. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's literally my wheelhouse because I am athletic, I love working out, and I love Tomb Raider and video games, and it's for IGN. Okay, so I do that shoot. I'm still working at BuzzFeed this whole time, and I'm like using vacation days to do this, and I'm getting permission from my manager, and I do this shoot. And then I don't really hear anything for a few days. And I'm like, oh no, like, I don't know, is this an audition? And am I doing freelance? And I mean, they paid me for this, so it was freelance work, but I wasn't really sure like what the deal was because they didn't mention the fact that I had applied for this job, for this host job, right? So the video comes out. I was working with Gabe, who's awesome and who I still work with, and he's lovely. And I'm so, so glad that he was the person I was working with, mostly because I was like, so nervous, and he like has kind of a similar sense of humor for me, so he was feeding me like ideas and lines. And actually I was interviewing the trainer, so Alicia Vikander's trainer, I can say her name now, and his name was Lars Lickbach, and I just blanked. I've never had that happen before. So they're like, IGN, it's your turn to do the interview, and I walk up, and you know, Gabe and the cameraman are standing there, and a bunch of different outlets are standing there. And I look at him and I'm like, hey Lars, so you trained, I don't even know what came out of my mouth. It was like, arr. Have you ever seen that Vine of the lady who like is trying to do a Jamaican accent and she's like, there. That's literally what came out of my mouth. It was so bad. And I've never had that where my mind just completely, like all I could see was black. I completely blacked out. And then Gabe was like, oh, you can start again. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're never gonna hire me. What did I just do? And I ended up doing the interview, we did the shoot, and they sent it up to San Francisco office to edit. And then maybe, I can't remember if it was a week later or the next week, whatever it was, Blair reaches out to me again and he's like, hey Sydney, we'd love to have you come in for a test shoot, I think was the language that he used, where I was gonna read off a prompter, I was gonna read a Daily Fix script, and then I was gonna come in prepared. They gave me 3 topics to talk about. One was Altered Carbon, the Oscar nominations. I don't remember what the 3rd topic was, but I did research on all of them. I felt the most comfortable with the Oscar nominations, and I first felt the least comfortable with Altered Carbon because I really didn't like it, and I didn't want to just like come in and start talking trash on this thing, right? So nervous. I remember the dress I was wearing. I always wear the same dress to interviews. It's this white floral, like it looks like a wrap dress, and I always wear it with the same tennis shoes because every time I wear it, I get the job. I wore it for my Red Bull Media House interview, I wore it for my BuzzFeed interview, and here I am wearing it for my like IGN interview. And again, this is all happening in the LA office. So I go in, I read off the teleprompter. Luckily I had some teleprompter experience. That was only when I was doing the Game Awards, which was my first time reading a teleprompter, and it was live. I mean, we had rehearsals, but I digress. It was very scary. So this was a cakewalk. I did the teleprompter read, and then Blair was like, hey Sid, what topic do you want to talk about? And I was like, oh, maybe the Oscars. Honestly, I don't care. Any of them except for Altered Carbon, because like, I really don't like that one. And he was like, okay, so you'll do Altered Carbon. And I was just like, why did I say that? But actually, after the fact, they told me that part of the reason why they liked me was because I was one of the only people who like had an opinion on it and wasn't just like, this is great. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't really like it. So I did that, and then he asked me to go talk to Wade, who I think Wade's title is Chief Programming Officer, and I like kind of had a mini interview with him and just kind of talked to him about my background in gaming and in hosting and just my job background. and we had a really good conversation. And then Blair goes, Sid, you like Overwatch, right? And I was like, yeah, I like Overwatch. And you know, like, I like Overwatch, but I'm not somebody who like plays Overwatch and like knows a lot of Overwatch things. Like, I just casually, like, I like watching the Overwatch League, and I can sort of play Overwatch. I'm not very good. And he's like, oh yeah, well, Sid loves Overwatch. And I'm like, I didn't say that. I still remember that sinking feeling where I was just like, yeah, I love Overwatch. And so they were like, okay, well, do you want to go to Arizona for the weekend? I think I went in on like a Tuesday, and they were like, do you want to go to Arizona for the weekend and cover a collegiate Overwatch tournament with one of our social people? And I was like, okay. And so I got the time off because I had to leave on a Friday, and I went to Arizona. Again, they paid me for doing freelance work for them, and I did some Instagram stories, and it was really cool. I went with Sean Pitts, who's awesome. He's no longer at IGN, but it was really cool to bond with him and just chat with him. And we did that. And so then I'm waiting at this point. I think it was like sometime in March. I had applied in early January, and now we're in March, and I'm like, are you gonna hire me? Like, what's going on? I can't remember the order of all of these events, but basically Fran and Terry asked me to go to lunch with them, and it was an interview setting situation where I had known Terry. She was a friend of mine before I started working here, but so that was a nice like buffer comfort thing. And I had lunch with them, told them, you know, sold myself, and was like, yeah, I'm great, la-di-da, this is my background in working, hire me, please. We had that conversation, and then Blair reached out again, was like, hey, we have another gig for you. Do you want to go to PAX East for us? And I was like, sure. But I think at this point, I was like pretty frank. I was like, honestly, like, what is happening here? Because like I'm using all of my vacation days at BuzzFeed to go do this freelance work, and while like I love it and I'm so excited that you guys are thinking of me, like I am kind of wondering what's going on the job front. And at that point, Fran was like, oh, we have another candidate who has an entertainment background, and she's really awesome, da 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 da. And I can't remember if he used this language, but more or less what I got from it was, I don't have as much experience, which is true. I don't have as much experience. My only other hosting job had been for the Game Awards. And then ultimately he called me and he was like, listen, so we're gonna hire the other person for the entertainment position, but we really like you. And so we pulled together some budget, and we want to offer you a position where you kind of be more of like the face of social stuff. And like, you know, we'll build out what the position is going like as we go, but like, there you go. Just kind of know that we're figuring it out as we go too. Okay, cool. So I obviously accepted the job. And then in terms of how I got to the daily fix, well, so I get the job. My first day is April 4th, which was right before PAX East. So I did end up taking that freelance work, but it rolled into just my full-time job. And I go to PAX East, and you know, we were all kind of working together to figure out like what my role at the company was, since I was the only gaming person down in LA at that point. The LA office is technically, it's mostly sales, entertainment, and branded. And there's not really any gaming folks. And even now I'm the only gaming focused person in there. And then there's Nick, who produces the Daily Fix and who I work on a lot of the projects with. And while he does do gaming content that I'm also doing, he does kind of both gaming and entertainment. And then I did E3, which was awesome. I did some live stage stuff. I mostly did IGN Access stuff. And then I did E3 in 60, which was a program that was a 60-second kind of recap of the day at E3 that ran on Disney. And then did Comic-Con, did Gamescom, and then at that point, Snapchat Daily Fix launched, which I was so excited about, and they had me be like, that was my show. And then in, I think it was July or June, Alana left, and they were trying to figure out who was going to do the Daily Fix. The Daily Fix was still being shot in San Francisco, and that was kind of like the biggest hurdle, was the fact that the Daily Fix was being shot in San Francisco, and I obviously was in LA and not San Francisco. So then we had to figure out how to shoot the Daily Fix in LA and not San Francisco, and we figured it out. And I'm pretty sure my first Daily Fix was sometime in mid-September, because it was after I went to PAX West, and then I came back from vacation, and then I started the Daily Fix. And that's how I got my job, which is like such a crazy story. Also, you guys haven't gotten to see how cute my Pikachu sweatshirt is, but it's really cute. That's how I got my job. It's a lot of timing, like knowing people. It was a long time coming, honestly. Like, it wasn't like I woke up one day, it was like, I want to host. I mean, I did do that, but it wasn't like I woke up one day, it was like, I want to host and get a job at IGN right now. It was, you know, following my passions and going to gaming conventions and going to esports things and letting people know at the companies I was at that I wanted to be doing those things. And I think also positioning myself to work at companies that were even interested or doing things in the gaming or esports space was important, because then I had the opportunity, even if it wasn't my primary job, to still like get my foot in the door and still be able to help out on projects, which, you know, was a lot of work, because a lot of times, especially in the beginning, my primary job was to focus on Red Bull's sports presence on, you know, streaming websites, and I had to do a lot of extra work and take a lot of extra meetings and stay late because I wanted to be a part of the esports program. Thank you so much for watching. So that is how I got my job. I hope it was helpful. Let me know in the comments if there is anything in particular that I kind of breezed over that you wanted more information in, and maybe I'll make like a breakout video that answers some more in-depth questions about working in games or working in front of the camera and being a host. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you are the first to know. That was weird. When a new video drops. So I'll see you guys all later, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.